Okay, so for number 1, it's in data point form. So my domain is -5, -1, 3, and 7.
Do you always have to put it in order like that?
If it's in roster form, yes. This is proper roster form. It's like a list. My range is -1, 0, and 4. This is number 1. For number 2, I know that those are really hard to see, those little dots. But I have, can one of you just yell out the elements of my domain?
3 to 3, -1, 1, 2. Oh wait, 1.
No, 2,
2, 1.
There's 2 1. There's 2 1. Yeah.
2 ones.
Yeah. You know.
Nice. What about my range?
-4, -3, 0, 2, 5.
Are you gonna
You?
-5 though? No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, number 3.
-2, -1, 0, 1, 2. Range is 0, 1, 4.
0, 1, 4. Number 4.
I don't know.
My domain is all real numbers.
Wait, what? Why? How?
Because it's expanding with arrows going out. I don't know when it will ever end. So the x is going toward positive and negative infinity. So x is all real numbers because it's expanding out toward positive and negative infinity in the x direction.
I just go
However, my
x is greater than or equal to
-3.
Well,
What about all
that's
those
for number
values?
5.
Okay. Yeah, that's what it would be for number 5. But for number 4, my range would be what? It's more limited because I only go up to a certain point. What's the point I hit?
Like 6.
Yeah, so y is less than or equal to 6 would be my range.
Oh.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's an all real number?
All real number.
Is there another way you can write that? Just that form.
So then if I look at number 5, Kai did number 5, I can look at this and I can look at for this point and I can see that beyond -3 in the negative direction there are no x values included. So my domain here would be x is greater than or equal to -3. Because on number 5, I do not have any x's in the negative direction past -3. There's a closed circle at -3. And then my range would be what?
All real numbers, right?
Y is greater than or equal to -4.
What? How? What?
Because there's only one line and it's increasing towards infinity in the y direction.
I got you.
Where'd you get negative? Oh, yeah.
-4.
So these graphs we're starting to look at some examples of parent functions or toolkit functions that we'll be doing. So this one is a square root graph. This one's a reciprocal graph, number 6. We're going to start being able to identify these specific graph shapes based on their parent function or the most basic function that they are part of. Jada.
Can we go back to number 4 for a second? I'm kind of confused on how or the domain is all real numbers.
So if I was to draw it out without, that's beautiful. If I was to draw it out without any graphing lines or points, do you see how these arrows are expanding out in the x directions? So it's expanding in the x directions toward positive and negative infinity, and because it goes on and on forever, there's no closed circles or open circles that end it.
Yeah.
So it's approaching positive and negative infinity. So it would be all real numbers in the x direction.
Yeah, sorry, I thought they were going straight down.
It kind of looks like it, but if the graph stretched on forever and ever, it would slowly creep out. Okay, so for number 6, what would my domain be?
God.
The x is domain is all real numbers.
Domain is all real numbers, but what?
But 3,
X is not equal to 3.
the equals of the slash there, right?
Mm-hmm. And then my range is,
All real
Um,
numbers excluding
Except 0.
nice.
Why?
Because if you look here at the points that they do not equal, the only y value that these lines do not touch or equal is at y equals 0 or the origin line. The only point that they do not equal for x is 1, 2, 3 lines away from the origin line.
Why?
How's the domain not equal to 3 though?
Because the domain is all possible x values, and these lines curve away from x equals 3.
So like for y,
Oh, I see,
y
yeah.
doesn't equal to
Okay.
0 because y didn't like intercept. Like,
Yeah,
doesn't
exactly.
touch
So
it.
the lines like are repelled from y equals
Okay.
0.
I got it.
Cool. So then on the back side, I just want you guys to do the first 3. This is, so we talked about them in list, then we talked about them with all real numbers, and it used set notation. It wanted a little bit of set notation, which I'm fine with just using these inequalities. Now it wants you to list them in interval notation. So why don't you do numbers 7, 8, and 9 and list those in interval notation for me. Remember, interval notation is with the parentheses. So it's either soft brackets or the hard squares or that or that. So just do 7, 8, and 9.
See, is that how you want
Exactly, yeah. That's exactly. But this one, it does not equal those. So those are, or it does, it equals, it includes -5 and +5 because the line touches that point. So you'd have to use a square bracket around those because it includes those points.
Okay, so that's the difference.
How do you do
Yes.
Like really
Yeah,
trying
so
to me is
the
always
way I
like-
remember it is that like when the number can sit inside, like literally visually, the number can sit inside the bracket, it includes it, but when it's circular, it can't go, it bumps off. Like if I have this, that can't sit inside there, but it can sit inside that. Does that make sense?
I don't know
So this
I don't really get that.
Number
Graphing.
7 and stuff.
Okay.
Like, I don't know.
So think of all the possible x values for number 7.
Negative infinity and positive.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's what I thought I was thinking.
Then
But
think
then,
of
like-
all the possible y values. Like what are my containments on those y values? So for number 7, my x values are approaching -infinity and positive infinity.
That's the domain.
So
That's the
that-
domain.
So we kind of our real number.
But it like it's
It wants
every,
it in interval notation.
Oh, interval. Okay.
what's
And then the range is
Oh well.
Hmm?
the open dot?
The open dot means it doesn't include it.
Is
So
would the y or the range be
5 and -5.
Yeah, 5 and -5.
X is
Negative
greater
5.
than?
so because the line touches at -5 and 5 for those, it would be included in the interval.
Goes from here to here.
Yeah, this is the
Because y doesn't get any greater than 5 and it doesn't get any less than -5. But y approaches, it continues on and on and on forever in the x and y direction. So it goes towards infinity in either direction.
So interval
Positive.
notation is basically just like any number in between those two numbers.
Exactly.
Number 8.
Yeah, number 8 is funky. Number 8 has an open circle in the middle of the line at, I think it's at -3 for y, at -1 for x. So my domain for x would be -infinity, and then I'd have -1, and then I'd have a hard bracket there, or soft bracket
But it
there.
also goes to Positive.
And then it's also
Oh,
union of
okay,
set,
I see.
negative
Oh.
1, positive infinity. My range is the same. My range is negative infinity to negative 3, union of set, negative 3 to positive infinity for my range.
And the parentheses, not the brackets, means that it can be that number.
No, so the parentheses means it can't. So I was just
Okay.
telling Andrew, the way I remember it is that, like, just visually, this 5, if I shifted it over, it could sit in that bracket.
Yeah.
It's, like, included in that bracket. However, this, like, if I can't, like, have that infinity sit in that, it like, bounces out. So it doesn't include it.
Does number 9 have a dot, or is that just like a
Number 9 doesn't have a dot, so that line is 0 is included in that. So my number 9, I have my sideways absolute value graph. And so my domain, what are my possible x values for that?
Negative infinity.
Negative infinity
Zero.
and 0.
With a
What is my range for that?
negative infinity, positive infinity.
Nice. Cool. Do you guys feel comfortable with those 3? So when I have this drawn, just like I did with my other one,
One go up, one
Yeah.
down.
Oh, because it stopped. at
because
one.
if this graph, just imagine if this graph went on and on and on, it would slowly be opening.
I was just a little confused with the zero thing, but now it makes sense.
Great.
What about like how y starts at 2 up on the y-axis?
So that doesn't matter because it's still opening in the positive and negative direction
So you're
with
still
the
gonna hit
arrows
every
for
number?
forever.
Yeah.
Like
Do you have a bracket or parentheses on there on purpose?
here.
Yeah, because it's.
Yes, so the zero is included because
So
the line
zero's
is
in-
part
the
of
zero's
0.
in the
X is
bracket.
zero.
Yeah, so
Oh, so you
if
can
it
have
wasn't
both.
included, there would be an open circle in
But
the
you
middle
could,
of that
you could have
line.
a bracket and parentheses.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah. We feel good? Feeling good?
Not the next one.